You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we are doing something a little bit different than what we usually do. If you've been on social media or listened to my other podcasts and kind of listened to us talk about what was coming up this week, or even Daphne kind of pitching it a little bit last week on this show, that we, just with schedules and busyness and everything, we're like, we want to make sure we get an episode out. We want to make sure we got something for people. We don't have a lot of time. So what do we do? And we kind of did a little bit of brainstorming and found this series here on Netflix, which is originally a CW series that is now found a streaming home on Netflix. And Daphne will tell you more about them a little bit later. But
yes,
exactly what it is. But we did find this and we were like, you know what? It is a horror anthology of 20-minute episodes. We can watch one. It's easy to take, 20, 30 minutes out of your day. Take some notes. Watch this real quick. We can talk about it. It'll be a quick and easy episode. We don't have to do, stress too much. Easy for people to watch. So this will be a short one this week, as long as I don't keep rambling on for, an hour right here at the top. But yeah, so I think this will be a little bit shorter. You're looking at maybe people are like in their podcast player looking at it like, nope. But, we're going to try. We're going to try. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so that's really it. We're discussing this, an episode of this CW series, 2 Sentence Horror Stories. The episode we are covering is titled Fix, directed by Rania, Attieh and Daniel Garcia, released January 26th, 2021.
Yes. And I had actually seen all of season 1 of these shorts, and I did not even realize that seasons 2 and 3 were out. I just never had a chance to get back to it. But I really enjoyed them because they were brief. You could watch 1 or 2 and, go on with your day and then go back and watch more. You could, because they were like short little bites of films, basically. They're little shorts.
Yeah.
So you can binge the whole way through, or you can go one at a time. It's pretty easy to digest, even though they are a little disturbing at times. And very creepy, because it is a horror anthology.
Yeah.
So this particular episode is one of 3 directed by Rania, Attieh, and Daniel Garcia. They directed the episodes Hide and El Muerto. Maybe we'll cover those in the future. We're not sure. We'll see what you guys think of this little venture. So the episode was written by Christine Huntley. It's 20 minutes long. Pake, why don't you give our listeners a synopsis of Fix?
All right. Jackson checks in on his estranged sister on the anniversary of their parents' death, but starts to suspect that she may be possessed by a demon.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
When I was watching the episode, I was thinking one thing, and then in the middle of it, I changed my thoughts on it completely, just because you think it's one thing and it's not. It definitely twists around.
As we go through here, even my note taking really wasn't any different, but usually a little behind the scenes, inside baseball for people. A lot of times when we're taking notes, I'll get all the notes just in the order that I watch something. And then I kind of move all of my notes around and compile them into different character, sections or points or whatever it is, and kind of really move things around to make it flow. With this one, I was like, I'm not doing any of that, because honestly, I think the best way to tackle this is just to talk about it in the order I took notes as watching it, because it's a journey. It's a quick journey, but it is a journey on its own. It is. To follow through that way, I think is the best way to do this.
Yeah, it's definitely multifaceted. There are, I think, a lot of metaphors in it. And by the end, I realized I'd been on a trip with Jackson. It was, the folks that do these anthology snippets or shorts are very clever, and they're also careful because they want things to kind of have a social aspect of them as well, like what's really going on, tapping into, socially relevant things, real fears that are going on in society. So I wanted to give a little more background on this series before we start discussing fics. So this, as we've said, is an anthology series. It's terrifying shorts that were created by a lady named Vera Meow. She pitched the idea as sort of like this updated Twilight Zone, which I can kind of see in watching this episode. There's no Rod Serling there to lead us through the episode or make any comments of any kind. What we get is basically two sentences, but we only get the first sentence at the beginning. And so the second sentence is more like the punchline at the end.
Yeah.
That ties it together. She was inspired by like online microfiction. It was originally intended to be this collection of short stories, like short videos, not in the episodic way, but more of like like short films instead of like TV episodes.
Yeah. To which two-sentence horror stories has kind of been a thing on Reddit and Tumblr and all those. Maybe they've done some of them in this anthology because I haven't watched all of them. I've only seen this one. But like ones that come to my head, like this one after it happened, I was like, I have heard this one before, actually. Like I do remember coming across this one. But then some of the other ones I've heard, what probably the most famous is, you're the last person left on Earth. There's a knock on the door. That's, a really big famous one. Or, the baby keeps waking me up at night. I don't have any kids.
Oh, man. That's real creepy.
Things like that. Yeah.
Well, their official description for this series is each standalone story taps into the expansive world of the horror genre, pressing universal primal fears filtered through the anxieties of the most connected and racially diverse generation. And as we mentioned, this is a series that's been going on for a couple of years. First episode premiered in October of 2019 on the CW. And if you're interested in watching more of these two-sentence horror stories, all 3 seasons are available currently on Netflix. So I feel like, Pake, we might as well jump into this. And again, this is going to be different than our other episodes. We're not going to have like a character-driven discussion like through the main character. It's a very small cast.
Yeah.
We're going to do it a little different, but we'll probably still jump around at times, so that will feel, similar to the way we usually do things.
Yeah, I don't want to just recap the episode and that's it. We're going to give thoughts on things, but I think kind of following in line for the most part with the episode may be the best way to do this one, but try not to just make it a rereading of the episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, when I started the episode, it starts in some sort of a nightmare.
Well, we can even start with the first sentence. That's the first thing they give us. Set it up. My sister needs to talk. That is the first sentence.
Yeah. And then we get this nightmare that Jackson's in that doesn't start like a nightmare. It's kind of him with his sister pushing their parents in swings. Which seems like, okay, well, this is a cute family moment. Except it's at night, and then things start to shift. The parents take a deadly form, like they're dead, basically. They're corpses. He looks at his sister and gets this weirdness out of her as well, and then he wakes up. Yeah,
she's covered in like all these... I kept going back and forth between moths and butterflies. I think they're butterflies.
They are butterflies.
They're like black butterflies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was... The butterfly plays into this episode a couple of different times. I love butterflies. They're one of my favorite things. They're a bit creepy in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very creepy.
So we meet our main character, Jackson, right off the top. Of course, Kevin Alves playing Jackson, which is honestly, the reason why we picked this episode out of all of them in the anthology was just for him. I mean, he's well known by us as podcasters, because he was, Javi in Lock and Key that I'm covering over on Strange Indeed, Travis in Yellow Jackets that Daphne has covered extensively. Yes. And then Daphne actually knows him from his time before.
Yes, when he was a figure skater, I actually saw him skate at a competition that I was photographing. And I still haven't gone back to see if I have any pictures, like if I photographed the men's event from that competition. I can't remember, because it was like 8 or 9 years ago. It was before he went into acting, so.
So yeah, that's why we kind of picked this one. I was like, that's Kevin Alves. We are familiar with him in a lot of different aspects, so that's a good jumping off point. Why not?
Yeah, definitely. So we get to meet Jackson, and you get the impression, based on the conversation that he's having with his boyfriend, Reza, that he and his sister have had a falling out over since the parents have died. And they haven't seen each other, even though the sister doesn't live very far away. His sister's name is Sophia. Doesn't live very far away. And Reza is very quick to suggest ways that they could connect. She's right nearby. You could go have coffee, dinner, talk these things out. We're not exactly sure what it is, but I think everything really, to me overall, tied to the episode title Fix, because I think the bottom line, once we get to see these characters, is that each one kind of wants to help the other.
Yeah.
Until we get to the end of the episode and realize something very different had happened, and it was different.
Yeah, and that's Jackson finally kind of getting this push to fix his relationship with his sister, who is very strange. After their parents' death, they kind of fell out because they're, as we come to learn, because of her addiction issues, and she's been battling addiction and is with that. And instead of really sticking around, he kind of got overwhelmed and left, and then she's felt abandoned by him. And then we go on to find out, of course, that he kind of even blames himself at the end of saying, the reason that she became an addict is because he was first. And it was kind of this whole situation where she caught him using and then went into it herself. And then he was able to get clean.
Yeah.
Quotation marks.
Yeah.
And
at least temporarily.
And she did not. So.
No, but that's not what we're driven to believe from the beginning. Like, that is not what we see at the start of the episode. We realize that this is the anniversary. They, Reza and Jackson have talked about it. We know Sophia's not at home, so Jackson's going to have to drive up to the family cabin to see her. And what we see over probably the next 12 minutes is not exactly what was going on.
Right.
So it's interesting to try to figure out, do we present everything that went on and then explain the end? Or
I think that's probably the best way to do it is talk about kind of our journey. I was the first time watching this episode. Is what we see and then what we got. And I think the best, because my notes really go with that. You will see there is a lot of snarkiness in my notes that turn into a different understanding near the end, he does show up at the cabin, meets up with his sister, and they do have some talk after some weird creepiness. Again, a butterfly like in the dream flies by, and there's this strange little evil demon back crawling figure in the mirror, and immediately it's like, no, that's when you leave and go, good luck, have it on your own, bye.
Goodbye. It's no, I'm out of here. There's no way that I'm going to stay in that, because I'd feel like I was in The Ring or The Grudge, one of those two movies. I'm not sure which one.
Right.
Really depends. For sure.
Yeah, but this conversation that he has with Sophia doesn't go very well.
No.
This first conversation that they really have, and it seems because they're just rehashing their issues. And she is telling him I mean, he's just a hypocritical, holier than thou kind of guy who, only judges her based, on her being an addict and being, selfish, but then he's also selfish. And it was kind of just like, let's work it out. And then it literally became just a rehashing of issues that it turned into another argument. And that was that.
Yeah, because neither one, I feel like, could let it go. He's mad at her because she sold their father's pocket watch that had been in the family for generations. And then when they start to get somewhere, she points out the cross he's wearing around his neck. And he's very quick to say, well, I guess I should be lucky you didn't sell this too. Neither one can really let go, especially him. Yeah. He's not letting go of anything. He, I think, looks at himself as he's the one that's in the right. He's the one that's healthy. He's the one that needs to fix her, not the other way around. Like they're not. It's not a let's help each other. It's I need to fix you because you're not okay.
Yeah.
And he even questions right from the start if she's been using again.
Yeah, so that doesn't go so well. They kind of split up. And then he ends up kind of back in her room looking at things. He goes for like the Bible and he's reading stuff, kind of his own affirmation of like, I need to just be able, it's a great verse. The slow to anger.
It's a wrathful man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger appeaseth strife.
Yeah, which is a great thing to live by. Honestly, it is. It's great.
Yeah.
If you come in hot, you're just going to cause more problems, which is what we saw in our last conversation. But for somebody who's able to slow down, take things in, not get mad, then yeah, you appease that kind of strife, and you might be able to fix something.
Yes,
things might be able to be worked out. And so he's. That's the first side. So it's kind of the happy side of that, where he's like looking at that and he's like trying to you can see in his eyes, he's like, okay, let me try this again. Yep. We can make this happen. But then the next book he picks up is, I assume, it's some kind of spell book, magical, kind of thing. It could be, again, I don't know much about demonology and Satanism. I mean, well, that's a different Church of Satan versus Satanism. Very different things.
Yeah.
I know some about some, but yeah, I haven't gone too much into it. Basically, whatever this book is, this dark, seemingly satanic book, and he's looking at it, and it's got blood, little smears in it, and it's creepy. And then Sophia's showing up, and this whole, well, I found somebody who was able to help me, and I found a cure. Maybe it's a different cure than you would have thought, but I found it. And he's knowing something's definitely off with her, but he's not sure what at that point. And then, of course, creepy things keep happening to him after that. The blood in the shower.
Visions. It's kind of like visions. Yeah, he's seeing things. He's seeing things. And even when she walks in the room, when he's holding the book, he's talking about trying to help her, trying to fix things. And she just shoots right back at him. Like, you're going to help me. You. Because she's still coming from that place of you haven't been doing anything. There's been no support. Our parents have been gone and I'm by myself. You've left me. Abandonment completely. And with stuff that came later, I just started to question, did he had a call with Reza, and I wondered, did that even happen? Like, was that real or was he imagining it? Because he started seeing these things like symbols on the wall and blood in the shower. And I just started questioning it. And Sophia talks about the children of Floros, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
Floros.
So Floros is, according to the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is a well-known spell book from demonology, of demonology from the 1700s. Again, I don't believe in any of that. I haven't gone into it. I don't really know so much, but it seems like a very, very deep cut thing that maybe only people very heavily into the occult and demonology would know, which is why I had to kind of stop and look at it, because I was like, it seems very unlikely that any church would go into the hierarchy of demons. When he's like, Floros, like the demon that they taught us about in church, and I'm like, I spent a lot of my years going to church. We don't really talk about the hierarchy of demonology and the demons and what, Yeah, it's kind of a weird. It's like no, because a lot of that is tied into like a whole different occult thing that Christians don't go anywhere near.
Yeah, well, I did a little digging, not too much, because I don't want to go down that road. But Floros is a recurring demon in the Silent Hill game franchise. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of 72 demons of the Gotia, which I don't know what the Gotia is.
It's the list of demons and hierarchy of demons that are in the Lesser Key of Solomon.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, again, she's found someone who gives her everything she needs. And like we just mentioned, from there on, things just got even more bizarre.
Yeah, he walks into her doing like this ritual with the demon, who's supposed to bring her together with him. He first hears her arguing with a cheesily bad demon voice in the other room. Oh my
goodness. For sure.
And then busts in and realizes he's under the symbol on the roof, and it makes him pass out. And then he wakes up with her cooking mealworms for him. Ooh, spooky.
Oh, that was gross. That just made me think of like the Lost Boys when they were talking about, oh, how's your rice? Oh, you mean your maggots? Like it was a thing with vampire.
How's your biscotti?
How's your biscotti?
Yeah.
Exactly. If you know, you know. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. So that was kind of my first, I was like, what? How would he know about that? Like, it was like Floros. It's like, you wouldn't have learned about that in just like church. That seems like that's a deep cut. Yeah. But yeah, so at that point, he's realizing things are pretty messed up if she's trying to combine with this demon. So he wants to leave, get his sister out of there with him. But of course, she's just trying to get him to join with Floros, which then I had a huge complaint about it at first, because I was like, how does one demon possess two different people at the same time? That doesn't make any sense. Until you get to the twist. Okay, now it makes perfect sense. But at first it was weird, and I'm like, no, okay, I get it's a metaphor.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, metaphors were a part of this.
Yeah, so I was a little snarky at first. I was like, okay, I get it. Once you realize that the demon possession stuff never happened and it is just a metaphor for something else, it helps take care of some of those like things. Because like, here are my notes. My snarkiest thing, I think, is I said, but she develops demonic black veins and can quickly teleport a foot or so, along with some crazy gas station whiteout contacts and an invisible fan that blows her hair back. Scary stuff.
Oh, you really went there, didn't you?
Yeah. And I was like, I shouldn't be so sassy. It's clear they're working with a very small budget, and effects aside, I appreciate what they're doing. But
yeah. Well, she tries to trick him a couple of times because he hears her outside the door, and he goes out because she's sounding more like herself. And she takes his hand and holds it, back, and just, Floros can take care of your pain so long as you let him in. And again, it's a metaphor for what we get at the end. Mm-hmm. It's so connected. You just don't realize it until we get to the end. And then you get the second sentence in the 2-sentence horror story.
Yeah. Which I was like, man, you shouldn't have bought that she was back to normal and needed your help and was scared. Like, that's good. That's how you get pushed backwards down the set.
Yes.
Is by
This never goes well in any movie. If they're pretending that everything is okay or that they like you or whatever, it's usually the opposite that's actually going on. Sounds very much like a soap opera and a horror movie.
Yeah, and then that's where we get to the point where Sophia, or Floros through Sophia, in that little idea, is trying to also possess Jackson, which I talked about. I was like, I don't think that's how that works. It doesn't make sense, but stick around for the metaphor and the twist, and then it does. And then I was like, all things considered, turns out to be a pretty easy exorcism. Just say the Lord's Prayer and touch a cross necklace to her chest.
Yeah.
Donezo.
I don't know about that, but that's what we saw.
Yeah.
And then they end up somehow on the sofa.
Yeah, kind of, if she's been exorcised of the demon, and they kind of collapse together on the couch, and it's too much, and they kind of she's passed out. But then within this story, still in his mind, she wakes up, and they have this meaningful heart-to-heart, which is cleansing for him, mentally at least, however he imagines this. It is something a part of the things that he needs to fix, again, within himself, is letting go of some of that guilt, which he still is going to be struggling with even at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of him facing those things in this heart-to-heart conversation they have, where it was because he was using before, and then she started after seeing him. He got clean, and she didn't. And they have this talk where they kind of apologize and forgive each other, and then we get that moment where she's coughing up these butterflies and then dies. And I think the metaphor of the butterflies are her soul.
That's what I took from it as well.
Black, coated in this inky black darkness, but then you see the last one that comes out is a cleaner blue color. And
that's what I took from it as well. Like, it's her spirit leaving her body, and she's free from the demon, which turns out to be drugs. Mm-hmm. Which is the other metaphor. I feel like the whole possession, the whole part about her trying to get Jackson to succumb to Floros is really Jackson's inner battle with himself to do drugs because he found his sister's body and he blocked it out. Like, this is how he's reconciling it because he's so overcome with grief.
Yeah. And her finding a cure and finding help. It's a dark way to look at it, but people who have dealt with addiction or people with addiction in their lives know when somebody does succumb to years and years of addiction and passes from it. It is terrible. It is tragic. It is sad. But there also is that part of you. It's like they're free. Their battle is over. They're not fighting and they're not hurting anymore. Do you wish there could have been any other way? Absolutely. Yes. But it is still kind of in that way. And so that's what he's seeing. And so, that was kind of the big twist that said, I did not see
Me
coming.
either.
I absolutely did not call that one. And said it changes my snarkiness on some of the other stuff, the, not so great effects and kind of weird storytelling of some of the possession stuff. I was like, oh, that doesn't really make sense or add up. Well, when you look at it through the lens of this metaphor, that doesn't have to make sense because it's serving what was really happening.
Yes.
And that is this metaphor for giving into your demons and them taking over and possessing you.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah. In this case, it was addiction, but I feel like in other stories, it could be anxiety or other stressors that you fight against and try to overcome.
Yeah. So I guess it's looking at what actually happened. He entered the cabin, found Sophia and her body had overdosed. And then it became just like a mental breakdown for him of picturing her giving into a demon and then him having to fight off being taken by the same demon. Which he sort of does but doesn't.
Yeah.
It's this, he does give in. Because and it's this sad place. I mean, she does not but she was already dead whenever he got there, and that's what sent him on the spiral. I think in his own mental struggle, in whatever happened, where he fought it off enough, who knows if he would have made it out of this situation. But he does survive. He's hospitalized, and that's when Reza is there to really tell him everything that did happen.
Yeah, because fortunately for him, Reza came to the cabin, walks in the door, and this is when you start to realize exactly what's going on. And he's overcome by the smell of Sophia's body that's been, rotting for a week.
Yeah, and that's kind of the episode, other than if you want to drop that second sentence on us that makes it, ooh.
So we already said the first sentence is, my sister needs to talk, and the second sentence is, she's been so angry since she died. Mm-hmm. So if they had read this all at the beginning, you would know that what was happening. Like, you would know that you were going to get to that punchline. So that's the clever thing about two-sentence horror stories, is it gives you this. It gives you only what you need to know with the first sentence. And the second sentence is often something you didn't expect. Because when I watched the first season, partway through, I started trying to guess what the second, as I was watching, I was trying to figure out, well, what is the second sentence going to be? And I was never right. Like, it's always something with a twist.
Yeah.
What I enjoyed about this is you have a brother and sister who obviously really cared for each other, but their relationship is very complicated. They're both very guilty. They can't really acknowledge their own issues, but they look at each other's issues and deficiencies. And we get to see just a small glimpse into that world through this short story.
Yeah.
And that, in a nutshell, is Fix.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I did some research, so I have a few behind the scenes things. The directors had stated that Fix is about two estranged siblings who are trying to get their relationship back after their parents passed away. I think, yes, that's kind of what's what it was about, but it was more about, to me, it was something much deeper. It's about demons and accepting people the way they are and not just writing them off because they might not be who you want them to be, which is kind of what Jackson did to his sister. He got sick of watching her hurt herself, so he gave up. Where this outcome could have been different if he hadn't been so quick to give up. But we also don't know exactly what she put him through.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I did see they have, for the show as a series, they have an official podcast. And when they did the episodes, they shot them with 5 days of prep, 5 days of shooting. The composer of the music then has 1 or 2 weeks to put together the right musical composition for each particular episode that varies from one to the next. So it doesn't sound the same. There are some unique things I found out about this, about the team behind Two Sentence Horror Stories. The writer's room is all female, and 80% are what's called BIPOC, and it's Black and Indigenous people of color. So it's very diverse. Because they went outside the box, they got a fresh perspective. They brought new people into the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild by hiring them to be on the show, even though they may not have done a lot of other work in the past. They were trying to get a different eye. And one of the hardest parts for this series is coming up with those 2 sentences. So, not a lot of information, but a little bit. And with this first time doing this, we want to give you guys a bit of a background on the series as a whole, in case we do this again. But you guys are going to have to tell us if you like it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if you enjoyed kind of this little something. It's easy for us to do. And if you enjoy kind of going through these and seeing them, then definitely let us know. I'm still considering, I'm thinking, how I feel about it at first, while watching. I'm like, I don't know if we're going to keep doing this. But then after that twist, I'm like, you know what? If it keeps me wondering what's coming and it provides a really interesting and meaningful conversation, then it is something we may be able to return to.
It may be just specific episodes of the series that stand out and kind of fit within our realm. We may have to watch a bunch of them to pick the right one to do next time. But in this case, as Pake mentioned at the top of the podcast, we really did this because Kevin Alves was in it.
Yeah. That was the choosing point there.
Yep. It was a quick conversation. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. What is that? It just kind of snuck up on us.
It did.
Like a demon in a hallway.
It did.
All right. Let me go get that feedback phone. All right. And we do have one voicemail right here on the feedback phone this week. So I like that. And it is from Steve Brown. I think we've got a little bit of live Steving.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to hear this.
All right. 2-sentence horror stories. Fix. Hey, Pake and Daphne. This is Steve. Well, that was quite a nightmare. Going to a cabin in the woods on the anniversary of your parents' death to meet your sister who you haven't seen or don't talk to or don't really have a relationship from. Okay. Complicated, that's a hard word to say. Complicated brother-sister relationship here. Is that like a makeup mirror there next to the round mirror next to the big mirror? She just said the word fix. She said it twice. Mic drop. And what the heck is she eating? You. Oh, don't fall for this, man. She had those dead-eyed eyes. Did he burn the demon out of her with his cross? Okay, that was pretty weird, but can't wait to hear you guys talk about it later.
All right. There is a live streaming of Fix, a 2-sentence horror story.
You got a 20-minute episode. It's a short live stream too, but I appreciate it. Thanks, Steve, for watching and sending your thoughts in.
Definitely appreciate it. And if you would like to submit feedback like Steve, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Tweet at us at RFYL Podcast. DM us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. If you are enjoying the show, please tell your friends. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. And talking about sharing the love, of course, go ahead and give a couple shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us. My other podcast, Strange Indeed, is back in full force. We are covering Lock and Key, Season 3, the final season. Me, Rima, and Jason over on Strange Indeed. We've already got the first 2 episodes out, and we'll be going week to week through this season. I don't know what to expect from it. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I've already watched episode 3. We haven't covered it yet. That will be next week. I'm going to go ahead and just give a little teaser on the fact that they finally did something in episode 3 that I've been kind of wondering if they're going to do the entire run of this show. So I'm glad that they're finally going there, and that's all I'm going to say. So you got to watch and you got to listen next week and figure it out. But yeah, I'm really enjoying that. That'll be fun to cover. So yeah, check us out over on Strange Indeed and get into that Lock and Key coverage. And then House Podcastica has a bunch of stuff going on, just crazy busy with what they're doing right now, wrapping up right now, and starting very soon. Of course, Better Call Saul cast. The series finale of Better Call Saul was this week, so they will have that episode up probably today or tomorrow. Probably today. Honestly, it's probably up when you're listening to this already. Talking about the finale of Better Call Saul. Man, I'm interested to know what they have to say about that.
Me too. It was quite a finale, and I've had a couple of days to kind of sit on it and stew a little bit and just think it through, and I have my own opinions.
Yeah, so check that out. Of course, then, if you're a fan of The Sandman on Netflix, Mark and Jamie are covering that on the House Podcastica and the Sandman cast as well. I don't know. They might not be on the House Podcastica feed right now. It may be its separate Sandman cast that you've got to look up. But go to podcastica.com to find links to all of the shows that they're doing. Our friends Penny and Greg will be covering She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, whenever that's at which the first episode was yesterday. So I've already watched it. I loved it. Thought it was great. Can't wait to hear what they have to say, because Penny also is or was an attorney at law. That's something that she did before. So she's kind of got the lawyer background, can check some of those things, and it'll be fun. So yeah, definitely check that out. I will be. And Dragoncast is coming with Rima and the return of Kristen. If you are a longtime Podcastica fan, you know how awesome and incredible that is to have Kristen back talking Game of Thrones universe, talking House of the Dragon, which is this weekend, also on Sunday.
Know.
Man.
Are you ready? Because I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm definitely ready for it. This is the story I wanted. When they were talking about all the prequels, to me, the Targaryens, the Valerians, that's the story I wanted. The rest of it, I'm not sure, but I am down for Targaryens all the time. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, so it'll be fun, and definitely check out Rima and Kristen talking about that. And then I know the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power show is coming up sooner than we are ready for. Also, it's like very beginning of September. That's just around the corner, and that will be covering that as well. I'll give you more details as we're closer to that, but keep an eye on Podcastica for that as well. On Adrenaline Cinema, Mark and Jerry back together once again to cover Escape from the Planet of the Apes from 1971. They've been covering all of these Planet of the Apes, all these Apes movies. It's been a lot of fun there with them doing that, so definitely check that one out. Over on the Walking Dead cast, Jason and host Sadie covered the first episode of Tales of the Walking Dead, starring Terry Crews and Olivia Munn. That one was quite fun. So definitely check that out as well. It's an interesting anthology Walking Dead show. Every episode is its own standalone thing, different cast. They're pulling in a lot of interesting people. Episode 2 is this weekend and out now on AMC Plus if you have it. And it's got like Jillian Bell and Parker Posey,
which is amazing. Like I don't have AMC Plus. I have not watched it, but I love Parker Posey. She's just fantastic. Mm-hmm. She's an indie film queen.
Mm-hmm. So that one should be a lot of fun. But yeah, their first episode is up now, so go check that out. Our friends over at TV Podcast Industries are covering Umbrella Academy Season 3, The Sandman, and also She-Hulk. The first episode's already up for She-Hulk. Came out yesterday, and they're already on it. I think Derek and company get some screeners, though, so they may already have a few in the bag. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he did. Sometimes they do get those, so that's why they're ready to go.
Yeah, because they're pretty quick on it, but yeah, so definitely check that out as well. And lastly, we just go ahead and give a little heads up on what's going on next week, right here on Run for Your Lives.
Well, when a Denver suburb is terrorized by a serial child abductor called the Grabber, a bullied teenager is forced to accept help from past victims in order to survive. Ethan Hawke has had quite the year between this and Moon Knight. We're discussing the 2022 film The Black Phone, which was directed by Scott Derrickson and based on a short story by Joe Hill.
That'd be a fun one.
With that, we've reached the end of another dark episode. This one was especially dark.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.